And welcome, everybody. I'm very happy to be doing this. I think all voices should be heard. A few notes about the format for tonight's debate. It's a really easy job for me because it's a rather simple format. Each candidate will have an opportunity to make a 2-minute opening statement. The order of these statements have been randomly determined. 6 questions will be asked in all in the 90 minutes. The questions have been selected from submissions made via social media. After a question is asked, each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer it. Each candidate will have a total of 6 opportunities in all. Once all 4 candidates gave their 2-minute responses, they'll each have an additional 1 minute to expand or not expand. They can choose to respond or not. Candidates can use their additional minutes or save their time to use it later. We will wrap up with a 2-minute closing statement from each candidate. And with that, let me introduce these 4 independent candidates. First, Jill Stein, the mother, a physician, longtime teacher of internal medicine, and the Green Party nominee for president. Jill Stein. As you can already tell, we are permitting audience participation. We're in downtown Chicago, by the way, at the Hilton Hotel. Next is Rocky Anderson, the former mayor of Salt Lake City and the Justice Party nominee for president. Next is Virgil Hamlin Good Jr., former member of the U.S. House of Representatives and the Constitution Party nominee for president. And the final independent candidate is former Governor Gary Johnson, businessman, former governor of New Mexico. And Gary is the Libertarian Party nominee. The first question for tonight's topic is our electoral system. This question is from the Free and Equal Elections Foundation hosting this debate and will be asked by Christina Tobin. Christina?
Well, thank you. And we'll start from the left to the right, and here's our question. A top 2 primary is an election in which party labels appear on the ballot, but parties do not nominate candidates. Instead, the candidates choose their own ballot label. All candidates run in the primary, but only the top 2 vote getters appear on the ballot in the November election. The system is currently used in Louisiana, Washington State, and California. It is now a ballot measure in Arizona, Prop 121, with other states interested in adopting the system. What is your position on the top 2 primary system and why?
We'll start with Jill Stein.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, and again, thank you so much to Free and Equal and to all of you for being here. Yes, I think top 2 does not enlarge our democracy. In many ways, it confuses things more. It puts many candidates onto the ballot altogether, and it arbitrarily attaches party labels to them. Any candidate can choose any label they want, so it really degrades the meaning of our political parties where they have meaning, and I know they don't always, but there are some that do have meaning that aren't bought and sold to the highest bidder, and the Green Party is one of those parties, and I know there are some other parties here as well, the independent parties, where the party actually represents real values, and the top 2 obscures the meaning of those parties, and it essentially puts everyone in together so you really can't tell who's representing you, and whoever has the biggest budget stands to win that primary, and essentially it becomes another way that big money can control our elections. So I oppose top 2, as the Green Party does, and we actually support a whole variety of election reforms for the purpose of enlarging our democracy, not increasing the sellout of our democracy. We are calling for getting money out of politics through public financing. We're calling for opening up the airwaves to all qualified candidates. We are calling for a constitutional amendment
10 seconds,
to
Jill.
clarify that money is not speech and that corporations are not people, to take back our constitutional rights.
All right, Joe, thank you. All right, next, for 2 minutes, Rocky Anderson. Rocky?
The top two system is simply a continuation of the degradation of our democracy by this duopoly of the Republican and Democratic parties. Our electoral system has been so constricted, our democracy so degraded by these two parties from the very beginning in terms of ballot access, even getting on the ballot so you can give people choices. This top two option would simply tell the duopoly, you just go ahead and keep raising all your money, you put your own candidates out there, you could even have just two people from the same political party, and that means no choice for the voters. Last night and all these presidential and vice presidential debates, look how constricted the debate has been when you've had two parties there, the Republicans and the Democrats. They're arguing about who's going to spend more on the military budget. Barack Obama last night bragging that he's increased the military budget every year that he's been in office. They're both trying to outdo each other in terms of who's going to drill more, both offshore and on public lands, and neither of them even dares to talk about getting rid of this disastrous failed war on drugs. Neither of them talk about catastrophic climate change, and neither of them talk about poverty, when we've got the worst poverty rate in this country since 1965. So we need to open up the choices. In South Africa, the world rejoiced at the growth of their democracy following apartheid. I've got the ballot, the first ballot in their presidential election that had 18 people's names on it.
Rocky.
That's real democracy, and that's giving the voters real choice.
Rocky, just one quick question. When you were mayor, what party were you in?
Well, I was in the Democratic Party, but it was a nonpartisan office. I was a Democratic candidate for Congress in 1996, but I've had it with the Democratic Party.
Virgil Good, what party were you in?
I was an independent, Democrat, Republican, and now I'm in the Constitution Party. Always conservative.
Okay, your response for 2 minutes to the initial question.
Thank you, Larry. First, I want to say thanks to you for being here, for lending your name and your prestige to this event, and to thank Free and Equal for their hard work in bringing a much broader vision to the American people so they will know they've got more choices than just Obama and Romney. I do not favor the top two system. I agree with Jill when she said money is not speech, and that the top two system enhances those that have the most money. However, I am not for public financing. I was not in favor of $100 million for the Democratic National Convention of taxpayer money, $100 million to the Republican National Convention of taxpayer money. The top two system is primarily a state issue. I would not be in favor of federal legislation repealing what Louisiana has done, or telling Virginia, or telling Maine, or telling Arizona or New Mexico, any state, what they should do. But we've got to work at every state and every legislature and oppose top two. In my view, it's a hindrance to true democracy for grassroots Americans that don't want to be controlled by super PACs and PACs.
All right. And our final speaker on this topic, and I know you were a Republican as Governor of New Mexico, Gary Johnson, your response.
Well, running for governor of New Mexico as a Republican, I ran completely outside of the political system. Completely. I mean, I went and I introduced myself to the Republican Party 2 weeks before I ran, and they said, you know what, we like you, we like what you've got to say. We're completely inclusive. You can go and you can make your case to all Republicans in this state, you know, take part in the debates, take part in the discussions. Well, that's the way that politics should be. I was able to make that presentation, I was able to make that case, and by the way, the Republican Party chairman at that time said, now you can do all this stuff, but you just need to know that you'll never get elected because it's not possible to get elected governor in a state that's 2-to-1 Democrat. Well, I did get elected. So as governor of New Mexico, completely outside of the political system, I've always been pro-choice regarding everything, okay? So should this be top two candidates voting system? This should be something that gets ferreted out at the local level. This should be something that gets ferreted out at the state level, not the national level. Look, there is only a couple of voices being heard here, and it's Tweedledee and it's Tweedledum. It's 2 weeks ago. It's 2 weeks ago, two candidates talking about who's going to spend more money on Medicare when Medicare is a system that you and I pay $30,000 into and get a $100,000 benefit. It's a 3-to-1 what you pay in and what you get out. It's not sustainable. Yet it's indicative of our federal government today, which is on an absolute unsustainable path, the results of which are going to be a monetary collapse unless we actually bring this under control. And as a third party, I've been given the opportunity here to make the case that's not being made by either of the two major candidates.
Thank you, Governor. By the way, just a quick personal, a lot of people ask me why I would consent to do this. One, I like moderating, and two, I like asking questions, even though I didn't ask these questions, they were submitted. And three, I think these people deserve a lot of credit for coming forward. It's easy to sit back and watch these people stand up. They may not be counted on November 6th, but they're counting today, and they deserve to be heard. We have each is now entitled to a 1-minute response if they care to use it. Jill?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to mention, talking about how all of us need to stand up and demand real democracy and demand free and open, inclusive debates. I just want to mention that my running mate and I went to the doorstep of the Commission on Presidential Debates at Hofstra University last week, and that we were arrested, we were tightly bound with plastic restraints and tied to chairs for 8 hours for daring to stand up and demand open debates. But this is what all of us need to do. I encourage you to go to my website, jillstein.org, and sign the petition there for opening the debates and for challenging the Commission on Presidential Debates. We should not let them
Jill.
do this again.
Rocky?
Rocky, you have 1 minute.
A top two system is a sign that these two parties, this political duopoly in this country, is trying to further put their stranglehold on our democracy. We have to stand up together. And in federal elections, it is a federal matter. We shouldn't leave it to the states. The corrupting influence of money in this country is at the root of every major public policy disaster. It's why we don't have health care for all, as in the rest of the industrialized world. It's why we aren't providing international leadership on the climate crisis, because of all the corrupting money coming from the fossil fuel industry, and it's why we have this enormously wasteful military budget with this military-industrial complex putting pressure on Congress and the White House.
5 seconds.
So we need public financing of elections for our democracy. We need
Virgil.
free and equal access to
Rock.
the public airwaves. Thank you.
Virgil, 1 minute.
Thank you. The top two system, as others have indicated, favors the super PACs and the political action committees. They're political action committees not just of businesses, but of